mention, by the way, I rearranged the schedule. I got an earlier flight. When you asked me, bottom line is I changed the flight to be sure I could get here. I didn't want to cut it too close. And then it turns out something else happened today, which I didn't expect, and that is I get off the plane, and as you probably know, the Supreme Court overturned, in effect, undid PA4, which is the emergency manager law, on Friday, and said they ordered the Board of Canvassers to certify that it would go on the ballot for the people to vote whether or not there be this emergency manager law. And then Monday, the Attorney General said, well, in the meantime, what happens is it reverts back to the old law, which is PA 72. I get off the plane in time because under the old law, the state superintendent recommends names to the governor to be emergency managers in those existing districts, which are Detroit and Muskegon Heights and Highland Park. And so it was a busy afternoon. And bottom line, happy to be here. I did, just as an aside, you'll probably read about this tomorrow, but I recommended, I was asked last week would I recommend the existing people, which I did, but I also recommended some other people because and they're from the department. I wanted to at least introduce the idea. I think the governor will appoint the existing folks for continuity reasons, and that probably makes sense. But I wanted to introduce the idea that there are more of these on the horizon, and I think we might be well served to build a cadre of people who can help out along these lines in the department itself. So I nominated a few of my folks also. So you heard it here. It's not already in some internet page. But Scott, thanks so much. I mean, I appreciate your leadership on it. Deidre, Laura, Presidents Garrett and Bates. I mean, I was really impressed when you came up to our shop and spent some time. And I think you're very much in the right direction. And I hope the community will support this, and that's why I wanted to be here. You know, I appreciate all you're willing to gather together and discuss this. This is a tough issue. I mean, a lot of folks, there's history, there's a feeling of pride. And, but if you really think about it, historically, there were thousands of districts at one time. I was superintendent 20 years ago in a district that 20 years prior to that had been 7 districts, and then it was 1. And there were many that happened quite a bit for a while, and then it just stopped dead. And, but as you know, in state suit, as Scott acknowledged, I sent a letter to y'all, and it's required by state law, so I got to you granting permission to initiate the district consolidation proceedings. Now, it's not within my authority to order that, nor would I want that. This has to be a community decision, and this is a democracy, and I think it's important to have the dialogue that you're promoting tonight. You've done the essential work to inform and include your communities in this vision, and adopted resolutions recommending the merger of your school districts. I've heard this a number of times already tonight. New district, new possibilities. I think it's a real good way to capture the way you're thinking about opportunities for your kids that are hard to maintain in the situations that you're in right now because of some of the circumstances that are financial especially. And tonight you're here to take the next step, I hope, to put a final administrative approval on the issue and on the language that's going to appear hopefully on the November 6th ballot. This ultimately would, and in my opinion should, be decided by the voters of both school districts, which is what tonight's meeting is about, and why I think you're so wise to conduct it. The seriousness of the financial uncertainties for both districts forces basically serious change. I believe everyone's worked judiciously exploring how a unified district can benefit all parties, but most especially the students. If you look at a lot of the debate that goes on, whether it's in the department or it's in the legislature or other places, people care about the kids, but often it's the last thing brought up. Even in my own shop at times, there's no malice. It's just like, oh, that's right, there are the kids. I wake up every day and I tell my wife, I mean, I feel now that we've been given early childhood, the governor reorganizing that, that's 2 million kids in this state. I feel responsible for each and every one of them. And so I'm at places like this when I think it might help turn the tide a little bit, help you make the right decision, and I hope you will as a community. I appreciate the professionalism because it's clearly exhibited by the board and the staff. I mean, it was very impressive when we met with you. I appreciate the willingness exhibited working with members of the team that I work with at NDE and to do what's right for everyone involved, employees and students ultimately, and the community. positive outcomes of unifying are just overwhelming, in my opinion. You're presented tonight with a unique opportunity to move your schools forward for your students. And as I said in my letter, you're really trailblazers on this. One reason I jumped through hoops to some degree to get here is I think you can be a model for the rest of the state. We can't, at the expense of an education for our kids, afford to have 500 and some districts anymore, quite frankly. And so I admire and appreciate very much that you're talking about this, and hopefully you pull it off and it'll be a model for the rest of the state. Because otherwise there's a certain inevitability to things that happen. Watch some districts that didn't get ahead of this in time the way that you have. So I can't thank you enough for being trailblazers. And it's going to set a positive tone, as I said, for other districts around the state, particularly those with deficits. And moving forward as one with a unified vision to provide a quality education for your children is really important. And I admire it very much. You'll be supported by me, by the state, for restructuring and repayment of the deficit. And I have the authority to do that. And I have a new opportunity to do it when you're a new entity. I don't have an opportunity to do that when you're two separate entities. And I promised you, and will commit to that, I would use my authority to restructure and improve the repayment of the deficit. It gives you some more time to get things in order. And you'll have the opportunity to reinvent the education system in new innovative ways that engage students and drive achievement gains. I mean, hearing you talk and already seeing what you've got with the innovative high schools and your work with the ISD, and I mean, you're in so many ways what's a shame is individually and then together, you've really got some great things going, and it's a matter of building on that, and you can do that. It's investing in the evolution of student learning. I mean, we called it something that the governor, I appreciate, adopted. I'm independent of the governor, I don't report to him, but I very much appreciate it. We call it the Annies. That what we need to create for our kids now is anytime, any place, any way, any pace learning. I mean, if anything, with no malice, teachers are feeling beat up right now. There's 100 and some thousand teachers who, the overwhelming number, are very competent, work very hard, and we have a lot of new accountabilities in place. And I think the balance to that accountability is to give more options to school districts to get the results any way they want. I mean, right now, I kind of stumbled upon authority as I'm the so-called constitutional officer. There's 4 of us, the governor, the attorney general, secretary of state, and the superintendent. So I've got constitutional authority, and one thing I started to do was give seat time waivers, as you know. By the way, there's an initiative going on right now by the governor and the state board to try to rethink the State Aid Act and the school code, because it shouldn't have to be coming to me to get this. You should decide if that works best for your community and make those decisions, not wait for me or someone in Lansing. And besides, the risk of whining, I mean, we had 2,000 people in the department not that long ago, and now it's a couple hundred. So, I mean, we're also a place that stuff just gets stopped. No one's fault. I've got a great team. But so why not open the system to let the creativity of the board and the administration and the teachers in these communities, along with the parents. I mean, sometimes we just forget. If kids aren't read to at home, it's hard for you to make the measures you're going to have to make. But I'm committed to giving you those opportunities to invent what you think is needed for each child in this combined district. And I think you really will create a dynamic model that's learner-focused, teacher-respected, and community-engaged. And staying on the same course as the districts have been may lead to more dire consequences. So, I mean, I think it's another great opportunity to avoid those. I think one way or the other, no matter what's happening with this emergency manager law at this point in time, it is something that moves. And frankly, even if that went away, I've got legal responsibilities to deal with deficit districts with or without an emergency manager. So I just can't thank you enough for being pioneers and getting ahead of this stuff. And ultimately, this isn't about money. This is about getting ahead of it so that each of your kids has an opportunity to prosper in a totally different world than at least people in my age group grew up in. I mean, I've got a granddaughter who's 2 years old, and some of my colleagues, superintendents, have heard me tell us that she came up, and my wife puts out these books on the coffee table, and she's looking at this book, kind of funny, and then she's going like this. She's just trying to change the cover of the book. I mean, she can't imagine that it isn't an iPad. What is this old thing? So we got to get ready for this. And I mean, it's